Greetings, Patrick here. Have Cheetah Will View. And yeah, welcome to the show. For real this time. Yeah, unfortunately last night was a little bit of a last night was a little bit of rough. Uh Last night was a little bit rough. Yeah, it happens that way once in a while. We were supposed to have a guest on last night and I don't know what happened. Still don't. But all I know is that they're alive, and that's really all that matters. But after that, well, so be it. Onward and upward, so to speak. And I'd like to say thank you to all the kind messages that I got. Uh, I posted because I'm frustrated. I'm human. Um, it's. I guess what really got me more than anything else was the fact that it wasn't somebody who just was brand new to this. It's somebody who has hundreds of shows underneath their belt as a performer, as a person who does press. They've done a lot of it. They know the game. They know how it works. And to absolutely no call, no show is basically it's just a complete sign of disrespect and an unprofessionalism. And that's what really got me because if you would have told me that would have happened to me with this person, I would have never believed it. Not for 1 second. Not for one. Um, Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can spot somebody who's not exactly right for the show. You have suspicions that they might, waffle. I've had that as well. People who initially agree to it and then they get close to it and then then they get nervous and they'll back out. That's okay. That's okay. Some people saying that they're not really comfortable with the format, or whatnot. And it is a difficult format because a lot majority of podcasts they're taped. Not a lot of them are done live. What we do here, not a lot of people do. A lot, not that I've seen. Even the two people that inspired me the most to do this show, of their shows were taped as well. They were never live. So I get that. And sometimes if people get cold feet, I understand that too. And what I'll do is I'll just sit there and say, you know what? We'll come back and do it another day when you feel a little bit more comfortable. And a lot of times that's what will happen. So that happens. I'm not really upset with those people like that. That's part of it. But the person who knows better and supposedly, allegedly, surprise themselves on the professionalism, and then to do that, well, obviously, we both know that you're not, right? So, and that's all I'm going to speak about that. Um, but I'm glad you guys are here. We had a nice crowd yesterday too. That's another thing the last thing I'll mention is that we actually had a really nice crowd. We had 10 people sitting in here waiting for our guest. To come and I'm sure you guys would have stayed around if I had continued to do the show, but I didn't really want to do that. I don't really like doing that. I mean, it's not an eight questions with. Once in a while I'll do a solo show or I'll do a round table or something like that, but I want to have it planned. I want to have it planned out. So, but to the people that showed up yesterday, thank you so much. And the people who sent me notes and kind letters and whatnot, thank you again for expressing your support. Glad to have it. Glad everybody's here to watch our show tonight. Tonight we are bringing back an old friend, and I do mean friend. We are bringing back screenwriter, film director, and now novelist Michael Caissie. Michael Caissie is definitely one of my favorite people on the planet. Um, Not only from the show aspect of it, but as a friend. He's a friend, and I'm so proud to be able to say that. And we talk once in a while. We late night insomnia. I might be up, though I'm doing better at that. I'm actually doing much better as far as not staying up so late. I don't know if that's a positive thing or what, but I'd be up here in front of my computer at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, just aimless. And a lot of times Michael and I would just sit there and just talk away. Um, so we're going to be talking to him about his new venture. He's got a lot on the plate too. Let me tell you. Um, he's got movies. He's done. Uh, uh, he's got movies that he's written and worked with collaborations on. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about his brand new book, Between Heaven and 42nd of Broadway, which is set in the 70s, New York 70s, I think the 70s or the 80s. So we're going to be talking about that. Um, and how we got into that, how we got, it seems natural, you would think, right, for a screenwriter to become a novelist. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I'm not so sure what is easier, the segue. It's sort of like a comedian segueing over to a dramatic role. They can do it easier than a dramatic actor can go over to comedy. And I'm curious to see how much of a stretch it was for him going being a screenwriter to writing a novel, or was he a novelist first? Did he write first as a novelist and then went into screenwriting? So we'll be asking him about that, and his new movies are coming out. No Tears in Hell it is now up and running. Um, um, we talked to Audrey Neal, and she mentioned that hopefully the movie will be out next year in time for cons. That would be very exciting. That would be very exciting to take a movie to cons, to get invited to go out there and watch it, to watch your film in front of everybody. Cons is still the premier film festival in the world. Um, though I will say this. This might be a little bit controversial, but hey, Echo, how are you? I'm not so sure Cons once has the cachet it did. I tell you that the film festival that really seems to be catching fire right now is in Toronto, the Toronto International Film Festival. Man, that seems to be having the pulse on everything. Um, doing good, doing good. Um, doing better than yesterday. That was a good stream you had last night. I was Caspering it. I was watching DC Cab and listening to you guys' stream, you and the Ice Lord, and and uh, and then I was watching DC Cab for Dollar Tree Theater. Man, I have not seen that movie in forever, and I've forgotten how much fun it was. That movie was a lot of fun, and it had a surprising amount of heart to it too. Um, so I did my Dollar Tree video, my Dollar Tree Theater video. So I did that, and it's on my channel now. So I'm gonna go flesh it out as soon as the interview's over with Michael. I'm gonna go out there and flesh it out a little bit more. Um, but I was really surprised. I was like, this movie is goofy, but I remember it mostly because of Mr. T. That's what I remember it most for. I remember it for Mr. T, because at that time when it came out, he had just came off Rocky 3, and so Clubber Lang, and so his star was arising, and it's sort of funny how you see how and he got a lot of the press, even though he was like he was one of the ensembles, but he still was doing this Mr. T thing, and doing it very well. That movie had a lot of star power to it. I was really surprised by that. Like I said, I had completely forgotten it. Um, at least this interview will happen. Of course, right? This interview is actually going to happen. This is not going to be one of those that is not going to show up. Well, I mean, something could always happen, of course, but knock on wood, we're going to be good today. Um, so tomorrow night, normally this is the last show of the week we do on Thursdays. But we do have one more show tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We will be welcoming in Marshall Teague will be here with us tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and I will be joined by a special co-host Hobbs from Hobbs Horror. He will be coming up here and keeping me company, and we are going to talk to Marshall about all sorts of things. He's got such a fun body of work. I can't wait to talk to him about it. The professor is here, and Mr. Dan Ahor, how are you? How are you? Glad you're here. Glad you're here. Uh, yeah, I sent you something on Instagram too, Mr. Dan. Of course, as soon as I see any Hot Wheel related material, I gotta send it on over to you. Uh, all right, so that'll be tomorrow night. And then on gee, I got totally I had brain freeze there. On Sunday the 9th on the Midnight Society, we will be talking about V for Vendetta, and I'll be joined by special co-host Katie from Popping the Popcorn. She will come out and be hanging out with us for that. And then on Tuesday, Tuesday, we are welcoming, or actually, take it back, go back to Sunday. So after we're done with V for Vendetta, me and the Cheetah, we are packing our bags and we are headed to the Great Northwest. We will be the special guest of Gory B movie and Danny Nightmare. We're going to be entering the Gory Hole once again. We were there not that long ago. We were there with John from Grandy's Graveyard, and we were talking about The Strangers Pray at Night. So this time we're going to be talking about Evil Dead, the original Evil Dead, the Sam Raimi Evil Dead. Um, so we'll be talking about that because Evil Dead Rise is coming out and this month, and everybody is looking forward to that in the horror world. It seems to be getting all sorts of really strong buzz before the movie opens. A lot of people are sitting there saying it's really, once again, it's really ferocious. And what I really like about that is like it's gonna be straight, just like the remake was. There was not no any goofiness or no comedy or anything else like that. It's gonna be just straight horror, and I don't know why I'm getting this. I have no idea why I'm getting this, but I have a feeling this might be in a vein of Train to Busan. I have a feeling like that. Like it's like, maybe their dad or mom or whatever is gonna try to get their family or these two people supposed to be trapped up there. Uh, they're supposed to be trying to get out of the building or whatnot. You get that sort of vibe to it. Let's see. Took a pair of gremlins to see the new Mario movie. Wasn't that bad. Um, yeah, I heard it has Seth Rogen in it, so I'll be waiting for it. Can't do Seth Rogen. Glad to see Charlie Day was there. That was a cool pairing. Chris Pratt and Charlie Day. That was interesting. Yeah, I saw the same thing. The Hollywood Reporter is sitting there saying that the Mario Brothers movie could be the first major hit of the year. And I'm going like, well, what do you call Creed and Scream Six? That's not, they're making decent money. Um, but they're saying Mario Brothers might make it all the way up to 150 million bucks. Yeah, I guess that would be a blockbuster and early jump for summer. Um, Now I think I put Michael's I think I put here on here. I think I did. I think I put his first interview down on here. Um, yes, I did. I put the first interview down with Michael Caissie here. And if you want to go ahead and read that, you can. You can get over there. I put a link in there to it. Um, and I'll be putting links to actually I'm going to put links to his films too. The movie that I liked, my first exposure to Michael Caissie, of course, was with Hangman, which starred Carl Urban, Al Pacino, and Brittany Snow. Of course, Brittany Snow from X, and So she is no stranger to horror, though. Though in Hangman, she did play her normal role. She played, she's I wouldn't say a final girl per se, but she was a good, she played a reporter, a really nice character. Wasn't anything like X. Um, and we're going to talk. I'm really interested in seeing what he says about that, the performance between Snowman or Hangman and 2X. All right, our guest is here. So let's go ahead and bring it back on. Those who can share us out, please do so. Thank you for being here. We do have a show tonight, and let it begin. Here we go.
Hey,
There he is. There he is.
Patrick, how are you?
Let's see. Yeah, you sound great.
All right, how are you doing?
I'm doing better now. Now that you're here.
Oh, yeah, did I scare you? Sorry.
No, no, no. We are. I do this show 3 times a week,
Right.
and so yesterday I had a guest that was supposed to be on. He's supposed to be on. We went through everything. We booked the show. We talked about it. Went over it, pre-showed it, and everything else. Sent him the link and everything else, and then he just didn't even bother showing up.
Hopefully nothing happened to him, but yeah, I get that's a real bummer. I mean, wow.
I'm like that too. I'm, like time when it happens, I'm always like, where are you? Where are you? And then I look, and then 20 minutes after he was due, I see him active on Facebook. He doesn't say anything to me, but I see, he says, you're active, and there he is. He's like, oh, so you are online, but you just can't talk to me.
Well, I've been looking forward to talking to you as always, so thank you for having me.
Oh, me too. We have a lot to talk about.
We do. We do.
Uh,
What do you want to start with?
Well, you know what? We were just talking about Hangman,
Yep.
and that's such a fantastic movie too.
Thank you.
And it and you have Brittany Snow in it. She plays the journalist there.
Right.
And did you see X?
I haven't seen X. It's on my list. I'll be honest, these last year or so, I'm so far behind on a lot of great movies. In fact, at some point offline, you and I should just, I know we've exchanged recommendations in the past. I'm due for like a binge. Life has just kind of been coming at me 100 miles an hour, and it's just, my attention span is just non-existent. So I've been, I guess, watching more TV than anything else, but you're saying I should definitely check out X. Is that what
I
I'm getting?
definitely would. Okay, so I'm one of the two. I look at it one of two ways. One, it's an A24 film, so a lot of times the movie gets super hyped. I mean,
Right.
super hyped. I mean, anything the A24 does is going to get a lot more press than normal.
Right.
But that also leads into a lot of movies being overrated.
Mm.
You go ahead and watch it, and it's like okay, I don't. I'm failing to see what everybody's jumping up and down for.
Right.
Um, and so Ty West, who did The House of the Devil, and he did an excellent movie called The Innkeepers,
Mm-hmm.
in a movie called X, and in the movie, Brittany Snow is in the movie, and Michael, she's not Brittany Snow that you and I know.
Really?
Um, yes, they cast her as an adult porn star,
Wow.
and they changed her whole persona. I mean, if you didn't know it was Brittany Snow, you wouldn't have known it was Brittany Snow. Um, that she's she did nudity in the film. All her characters have always been pretty wholesome, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But this one here, drinking, smoking, cursing, having sex, it was such a departure to the roles that she normally plays. You think of Pitch Perfect, uh,
Right.
and that sort of thing. And all of a sudden, here she is, she's doing X, and it's just like, wow, that's so cool. It's different. It's interesting. The
You know,
movie is tough.
she just finished her directorial debut too, um, which I think is premiering at South by Southwest. If you get a chance to look up, I don't know much about it. I forget what it's called too. but I think she just finished her directorial debut. So maybe this is like a new chapter in her career. I'm excited to see what she does
I'm
behind.
I can tell you she was really good in X. I think X was a good average slasher film. I thought the
Okay.
pacing was a little pacing was a little slow for me, but I
Mhm.
mean overall, I mean it was a solid movie, but it wasn't like over the moon, you know.
Got it.
But but her performance for sure,
Yeah.
she stole it. I mean, it's like you're sitting there, you can't take your eyes off her because it's like,
Mm.
wow, it's such a daring role too.
Well, I thought
Um,
best thing in Hangman too. So that's saying a lot too with that cast. So yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I'll definitely put that on top of my list then. Thanks for the recommendation.
um, See, mentioned everybody came into the chat. Hi, Katie. How are you? And Lady Valerie is here. Welcome, welcome. Those who can share us out, please feel free to do so. Um, yeah. Now, has that happened for you? I mean, do you keep track of the actors that have been involved in any of your projects, whether it be as a screenwriter or a director, or just working with them at all? Do you keep track of their progress?
Yeah, more so from a directing standpoint because it's more hands-on usually. But I find that the the connection, especially on social media, is like a 50-50. If I'm just the writer on a project, some of the actors, they're either too big or they just don't, we don't make the connection. So, but as far as directing, yeah, I've even if it's a short scene or whatever, I try and keep in touch because I think, it's such a creative, uh, collaborative process that you kind of become that family element is pretty real, especially if you're shooting somewhere remote. You're all staying in hotels, you're away from family, things like that. So it's hard not to want to root for people from afar that you've been in the trenches with, even if it's someone that you didn't necessarily hit it off with, just to see. Also, the business is so hard that I like to see anybody succeeding that's putting in the effort, especially if I've seen them firsthand putting in the effort. So yeah, it's an easy. Anyone that I've worked with on any front, I'm pulling for, and those that I haven't as well, because this business is tough and it's a grind and choose a lot of people out. So the people that are still out there working, my hat off to them. And of course, yeah, people that I've worked with, I'm a lot closer to as well. Just wanted to see them succeed. But yeah, Brittany and I, we had like one conversation on set, and that was about it. But I wasn't there very long, so I'm admiring and supporting her from afar. But as far as like, friendship and stuff like that, that's not. We don't have that kind of relationship. But I am excited, like I said, to see her directorial debut because I think she's extremely talented. And, yeah,
Yeah.
see what she does.
Um, even your boys from Death Squad. It's been a very interesting year for those guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So you had to both back on again. Yeah,
yeah. Last time you and I talked was so long ago, but since then,
mhm.
um, Josh got he got his transplant surgery and is kicking ass. Uh, Mike Ferguson he's done a shitload of movies.
He's the hardest man in Hollywood.
Oh my God.
Saw him in a commercial for T-shirts the other day. I think on social media for large guys or something like a T-shirt commercial.
He also went down to Thailand and he made like 3 or 4 movies down in Thailand. Bounced back up. Mike Markov, he did some leading roles for Lifetime, and then he's co-starring with Glenn Powell in his new movie.
Right.
It's just like it's like, yeah, it's almost like it's almost like a tree almost, like you go back and see the actors you work with and you
Yeah.
just track them and see how they're doing.
I guess I should ask you that same question then. Yeah, because you have these are all the actors that you've interviewed and communicated with, and so you're seeing that's the tree, the 8 questions tree, who's and where they've gone exactly.
It's exciting. You introduced me to Audrey Neal, and so I got a chance. Oh, she's so lovely. She's so neat. She's so sweet. Um, and I looked at her movies she did for Full Moon. She did the second Sorority Babes in the Bolorama. She's very charming.
Yeah.
She's very charming, and she's definitely very I was thinking about that because she's doing No Tears in Hell for you.
Yeah, she was fantastic
Yeah.
in it. can ever get this thing through post, it's been a it's been a labor of love. Nothing to do with the actual post production process. Just it's a long story. It's a thing that's somewhat out of my hands. So there's nothing wrong with the film. The film's actually fantastic, but she's great in it. And I was actually I'm excited for it to come out because of all the actors, because I think it's going to be, I think it's going to change a lot of careers. I'm hoping, anyways. Modesty aside, I feel that good about it. So, fingers crossed that this sometime this year it'll see the light of day, and whether it's a festival piece or gets straight distribution, that's still in the process as well. But yeah, she was fantastic in it, as was the entire cast. So I
really are you? Is it? I mean, you still have control of the film, right?
Yeah, I'm still involved.
Where do you want it to go? I mean, do you want it to go to festival, or do you want to go to?
Yeah.
You want it to reach?
The problem with distribution is it's such a polarizing film. I mean, it's one of those things where this is a terrible comparison, but Human Centipede. I think we might have mentioned that last time, where it's people are love it or hate it, but there's nothing in between. And No Tears is not. It's not like that kind of film. It's going to be that polarizing, though. I think people are going to leave the theater really upset, and some of the people are going to be blown away. But it's that much of a visceral experience, and it's intense. It was intense making. It was intense writing it. So I think it's a festival piece. Hopefully one of the bigger festivals. But I'll just be happy for it to get any kind of. Yeah, I mean, it was something I really loved making, and I think I put everything I had into it, and so did everybody else. So, if it gets straight distribution, I'm not going to be upset. I think again, this business is so hard. Even getting a film from script in the can, then to the post, it's a miracle, and that's why I'll never bash any film or television show publicly at all, having gone through this process, just to see how many things have to go almost perfectly right just to see the light of day. So I'm seeing it. So I have a lot of respect for any film that gets made, or movie, TV show.
It is a blistering process. I mean, you have to work hard at it, and it's amazing. A lot of people, they tie budgets to everything. If you do budget, it isn't necessarily always so, though. I mean, you can look at a movie with not so much money, and it still can kick ass. Something like X. I think they made X for less than $1 million.
Absolutely.
A movie that we're big fans here this year. A little film out of Ohio called Clay Zombies. I think he made it for like $50K, and that movie is so much fun. It's just fun.
That's the thing. A movie can be a lot of fun, right? I think sometimes people lose track of that, and it's everything is the comparisons, and it's just I don't know. I don't know what people are expecting. I mean, that's the thing. I look at what is the film I'm walking into, and if it's a popcorn film, great. If it's a low budget B-rate movie that's supposed to be like that, great. I mean, there's just a lot of films. We talked about this before, maybe you and I offline, but there's no asterisk that comes with a movie. So when you're picking it out, it doesn't have an explanation of what went right for this film, what went wrong for this film, what the budget was, unless you actually talk to the filmmakers. So I think any filmmaker, no matter where they're located in the world, no matter age, demographic, whatever, they put their everything they can. I mean, this is not necessarily people at the top are making a lot of money, but the people that are in the independent world are doing this because this is what they've dreamed to do. Luckily, some of them can make money, but you see these labor of love. That's why I said it's hard for me to. I see online so many people like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. First of all, I find that hard to believe about any movie, but it's also like, if they made it for $50,000, you can't compare it to something that one of the studios made. I mean, that's ridiculous. So,
I guess what kills me about some of these movies like this, though, is I'm not necessarily, I look at something like Halloween Ends. It's like I think like for fans come in there, and believe me, I was one of I thought from the first two movies that they did. It seemed like they were going to go to a certain route, right. And to me, it was like it was the right choice. It's like what you're doing in the first and the second movie is the right choice. So end it, And I'll tell you another trilogy that was like that, and that was Shyamalan when he did his Unbreakable series. He did Unbreakable.
Yeah.
Split, and you're thinking, okay, now he's gonna, at the end of Split when we see. Bruce Willis there, we get super hyped up because it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you, this is going to be amazing. We're going to do one called Glass. And then you come out for the third trilogy, the third part of the trilogy. It was just supposed to be the best movie. And it turned out to be the worst movie. And it's just it's so disappointing as a fan, and you waited all this time and you really want a great conclusion.
Mhm.
And then you get that, or you get Halloween Ends, and you go like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You just shake your head and you're going like, what the hell happened? It didn't even feel like there was interference. It felt like he just got totally lost behind the typewriter, the keyboard.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, and that's where I always look at like these reviews, especially because I've been a straight screenwriter and then also written and directed and produced. It's hard to tell where things went, quote unquote, wrong. If it's outside influence, if it's budget, if it's too many chefs in the kitchen. I mean, it could just be straight ego, or it could just be the material wasn't good. It's just without being fly on the wall and seeing every step of the that's why I see a review that's like, oh, the script wasn't very good. Well, did you read it? No. You don't know if it was a script. You don't know if it got changed, if it's the actor. There's so many different things that could go that way, and it's one of those things where in these big studio movies, I think sometimes I feel it's a different kind of thing because you got a lot of chefs in the kitchen, I think, or people that they're test screening things. I think I remember seeing Deep Blue Sea, the Rennie Harlan film. I think I saw a test screening when I was in my early 20s, and I vaguely remember the test screening, the ending being significantly different, and just being mortified with the original ending. And writing that, when you do the test screenings, they ask for your thing, and then when I saw it released, the ending had changed. So sometimes I think test screenings are good, but you can also get stuck in that wheel of just so many people giving notes, and then at the end you end up with this. I call it like Frankenstein monster because it's just a muddled thing of too many people putting input and all that stuff. So I don't think very few, and that's the good thing about having a small budget is very rarely. I think those people have total control. Which yes, the budget's tight, but that's their baby, and if they're straight from page all the way through their own distribution, there is something awesome about that. You can feel the budget sometimes in terms of production value, but that's their vision from page to the end. But I think there's something to really be respected for that aspect. So I'm with you. Budget to me doesn't really matter in the film. I've seen some gems all across the spectrum. I've seen huge budgets but again, I'm in a different world than you are. Like I said, like I have my opinions on the Halloween franchise, the new one. Just like I have my opinion on the new Scream franchise. I like I'll just put it this way. I like certain ones in those franchises better than other ones. I'll just say that.
Right. I think every franchise has its favorites, and the ones
Yeah.
some are punching above their weight, and some just it happens. I have not seen Scream 6 yet. I actually haven't seen Scream 5 yet. I have it, but I haven't watched it yet. But I haven't seen Scream 6 yet, and it's the funniest thing to hear a Scream fandom. And the one thing they were saying that made me laugh, because it's something you don't really hear a lot of fans saying, but they're saying how they played it safe. They were just like they didn't do anything bold or innovative. They were just like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and kill all the new additions, but we're gonna keep everybody in like a clubhouse. It's like they didn't get hurt or anything. They didn't get killed or anything else. And I'm thinking, I wonder how much of that was influenced, because the same fans, on the other hand, Scream 5, David Arquette's character Dewey, he gets killed, and then everybody's talking about that. Everybody's going like, man, why'd they do that? Why'd they do that? And it's like, I mean, even Courtney Cox was sitting there saying, why'd you kill him? You shouldn't have, you could have killed me instead. Until the fans were,
that's the thing. You can't. There's going to be two sides to everything, right? I mean, people are gonna. You can't. That's the thing. You can't satisfy everybody, and I think Scream 6 actually gets a little meta with some of that stuff in a good way. I thought they were pretty clever with it. So speaking of, I'll just say this: I thought Scream 6 I enjoyed a lot more than Scream 5. I'll just say that. I think they both have their merit, but I'm always going to be Scream One guy. It just is what it is. That first time in the theater seeing that was just
Right.
hard to top.
I guess what I was really happy about, and this, I mean, it sounds sort of funny, but I think what I was really more happy about anything else about Scream 6 was the fact that, they brought back, and, you're talking earlier about how this business is, it can grind you up and whatnot. And, even if you haven't made it, it can grind you up. Even when you have success, it can grind you up. And even when you're top of the world, it can grind you up.
Sure.
And, one of the things I was really happy to see for Scream 6 was, they cast Hayden Panettiere. They brought her back, her character.
Yeah.
And, I was just like, wow, that's really, because she hasn't done anything. And, since she did Nashville, she's been teetering on the edge,
Yeah.
and so, they said, we're going to bring her back. And I'm going like, wow, it's like, how's that going to work out? I'm just thinking to myself going like, I think how she behaves on set will dictate where her character goes, and so, you're sitting there going like, okay, she's going to be the first one killed. And I, I
Oh,
have to I have to admit, I was super happy to see that her character, sorry, spoiler alert, I'm so happy to see that her character survived,
there you go.
because I was looking at it beyond just the movie. I was looking at it as being good for her as, an
Story.
actor
Yeah.
and as a person, that she got her shit together and she turned in a good performance. And the directors and whatnot said, you know what, we don't need to kill her off. We'll bring her back for the next movie. And and I was happy for her. Um, Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, does it, for actors? I mean, we look at some actors like Tom Sizemore, who all that abuse is caught up to him, and he crashed and burned. Um, have you seen that in your career? Have you experienced anything like that with any of the actors, or anybody in the business? Has that ever affected you on a personal level like that? And if so, how do you handle that?
Are you talking in respects to like personal demons?
Not personal demons, just people, like a Tom Sizemore. Like, have you ever had an actor friend or a producer friend, director friend, and you see them, and they seem to be spiraling out?
Hmm.
How do you, I mean, because, the pressure being what it is in this business, how do you help them? I mean, do you reach out to them? Is it something, do your peers get involved with each other's lives on that level, or is it just strictly professional?
I haven't had a personal experience. Just trying to think. That's an interesting question. I mean, I know Tom. I knew Tom, um, but not to the level of where I'm trying to reach out, or I'm not his. I wasn't his go-to person. But that's. I think maybe that's the answer to your question is when you are in any kind of, I'll say, group or unit, whether it's in your neighborhood, your apartment complex, your profession, your workplace. Um, it's your friend circle, I guess, is what comes of that. I think that's the level of. I will say that over the years, myself included, it's surprising who you turn to, or who's turned to me in times of, you know, going through personal issues. I'm going through some myself right now, um, and I have the core people that I would expect to step up, but then there's certain times where you just faith in humanity, I guess, is restored because there's basic compassion and empathy for other human beings is a lot of times severely lacking in society. Just everything is so fast and everybody is so, I don't want to say self-centered, but there's a level of just sheer survivalness where we're just operating and just trying to push through. And it's hard to, when you're struggling with something, it's hard to reach out to somebody else to help them with their thing and vice versa. And then there is this stigma.
Yeah, coming back from COVID, because last time you and I talked, COVID was
Yeah.
in full force,
Yeah.
and I was just thinking how, you come out, and to get the ball rolling, and to see how some people have handled it. Did they handle it? Did they survive it? Were they
Right.
affected by it or whatnot? I mean, how does that affect their personal work? Like when you're writing a part form or thinking about directing a movie. How have people approached the craft now compared to was before COVID? Has it changed for how actors or directors and whatnot, how they get work now? Has it affected it? Are we getting it back to people say, well, things are coming back to normal, and I'm thinking to myself, going like, it's been sort of normal, for like a year and a half, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think as far as filming, it's close to as normal as it's been for a while. I mean, as far as masks and testing and things like that, I think the big thing now is, there's a writer's strike that's being voted on right now by the WGA, which I'm pretty sure is most likely going to pass. So there is some hesitancy, I think, in terms of production and financiers and things like that to move forward. So I think the big takeaway, what COVID did do, at least for me on a personal level, is realize that I don't want to say life is short, but it is obviously. The idea of like, if I have the ability to work with people that are fun and easy to work with, because the thing is such a grind, I would rather move towards that. I think so. There's some of that, but I think the industry on a business level is shifting quite a bit. Foreign sales is changing because the world is on. It's so many different things going on with the world. So I feel like even looking at like what's being released now, we've talked about this before too. There's just a lot of there's the few studio movies, and then there's stuff that's just going straight to streaming. So there's just seems like there's a lot more material. Um,
Yeah.
I don't. I've had issues since the last time we talked, and even before that. I have projects that I'm working on trying to get financing for, and it's different pieces that have to fall into place. And so part of the, I don't want to say struggle, but part of the workflow is just trying to navigate these avenues. I don't know if that answers your question. I kind of went off on a different tangent, but yeah, it's changing. I think that people, more so on a financial level, the finances are starting to pull back just because there's so much uncertainty right now.
Yeah. Not only because of the strike, but just because of the world of financing alone. All these different banks are taking a hit and taking a beating, and
Yep.
people are, they're sort of like, are you part of the you're part of the WGA, aren't you?
I am. Yes. Yeah. Technically, yes, I am. Yes,
Uh,
I've been. I think WGA has seen this. I've operated on the fringes occasionally, but yes, I'm a WGA member.
um, so without getting in the, obviously I don't want to ask too deep personal questions because it's going on.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could just sit there and say yes or no to this, but it's the main focus this time because I was shocked the last time when that SAG and AFTRA went up there. In fact, the last two contracts they negotiated, I've been absolutely shocked to see not what they got, but what they didn't get. It was like,
Right. Right.
wow, to me, like first and foremost that they should bring to the party is this: if you're streaming us, you're paying us.
Yeah.
And last two deals have gone through, and that has not been addressed. And I'm just wondering for this time if the writers have been paying attention to that and going like, if you're showing us, you're paying us.
Yeah.
um,
I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not as dialed in as I should be, just in terms of doing my own thing in terms of work and the book and spending time with my kids and stuff. So I just got the email. I have a couple emails I need to catch up on in regards to, what it is that they're actually. But it seems to be, the last writer. It just seems to be there. I'll just put it this way: when actors strike, writers strike, whatever, it's usually to get their fair share of the pie. Even athletes, whatever. Anytime or strike in general. Unions back in the day when people were losing hands and things like that, that's a different thing. We're not losing our hands, but I think streaming is a big thing because,
mhm.
even with Hangman and residuals and stuff, seeing where Hangman is going on the different platforms and then looking at the residual checks and seeing just like okay, that's weird, or it doesn't seem to like. I'm like viewership, and there's no way. I don't know how they gauge. I don't know I don't know the specifics on how you can tell how many people on Netflix. I don't know any of those things. I'm not as dialed in as I probably should be. So, but I feel like it's a matter of, again, yeah, getting a fair share, especially when it comes to streaming and all these platforms that are available. I think that's a big piece of it.
I do too. I mean, I'm really hoping for, because I'm for all about people getting paid for for the work they do. And the
Absolutely.
fact of the matter is, it does frustrate me, thinking about that, especially now physical media being where it's at, though it does seem to be on the cups of a comeback, thanks to Bob Iger. Um, but it is frustrating because you put out Hangman and you're sitting there, okay, great, it's out there. I can go show somebody, I can go out there and get a copy of it. And quite honestly, you would be very hard pressed to find a physical copy of your movie in any brick and mortar store. People would have to go online to get it.
Yeah.
And and before that wasn't the case. You can go out there and pick it up and go home and bring it home. And the thing that but that's over with now. So all right, for right now it's over with. Maybe next year it'll change. But let's just say that for the sake of our argument, that you go there and you sit there and say, listen, physical media is dead. We're not getting any royalties, any residue checks from that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to negotiate for the streaming. Now you can start paying us whenever you stream the movie.
Hmm.
And certain levels can be, like if a million people, if a million minutes are watched on Netflix, you get this sort of money. If it's 2 million here, you know, um, I don't think you want to do. I don't think if I'm a writer and I'm sitting over here and going like, wow, they're telling me that people have to watch my movie all the way through in order for it to count. I don't think that's fair either. I
Yeah.
think, I
Well,
think what
yeah. If you bought the hard copy, then the purchase is there. To your point. Yeah, I remember. Even if you go to Target now or Walmart, there's very few Blu-rays available. I mean, it's kind of a bummer. I used to like going and looking at the Blu-rays and physical copies, and it just doesn't exist anymore. New releases are there, and that's it, and they're in and out, and that's it.
right. I know this conversation for this part right here might seem a little dry to some people, but I think as movie fans, and to get a chance to talk to someone like yourself that's behind the scenes, this is so invaluable. This is where I love telling people I get my education from. Now I get my education from people like yourself. Now I understand how the business works a lot better than most people do. When I see people talk movies, now I can walk in there and feel like, okay, I might not know everything, but I know enough to get by. I mean, I know the words that are being said and how they're being used. And, to me, it's one of those things where you never want to see a strike. You never do. Um, but you know what? If it means for you to be compensated fairly, then bring it on. Bring it on, because you guys deserve a lot more than what you're getting.
Yeah,
So
I've
I
seen the
want to ask
experience.
you.
Yeah, people seem to. I don't think people value writers as much as you do, Patrick. That's the other takeaway. Is for some reason I think people think that movies get made. People meaning people in the business. Uh, like it's just like it starts with the screenplay, and it's just so crazy that we're so low on the totem pole. I don't really understand that, but
Um, there is no movies without writers.
they just
Quite
are.
honestly,
They're
there's
just
there's no there's absolutely no movie without a story. There's none. It's just that's how it is. That's why, you know, without a story, you can't go to the financiers, you can't go to the casting crew, you can't sell it
right.
because you don't have a story. So the writers are at the heart of the entertainment business. At the heart of movie making business is all about the writers. It always has been. It's never not been. Well, you don't have to have a strong writer to get a good movie. Okay, you don't have to have a good movie then, because that's what you're basically telling me. If someone walked up there, if someone came up to me and they wanted, me to invest $5 million of my money into their project, and I'm looking at the script going like, this seems sort of soft, and they're going like, that's all right, it'll pass.
We'll figure it out.
Why
Yeah,
the hell am I going to do? Why in the hell would I invest money into that?
yeah,
I want a good writer.
I'm with you.
I will have to say this. Uh, it was so fun last time you were here because you and I were talking about Hunter's Moon, and
Hmm.
I got to tell you, I got kicked. My ass got kicked sideways after that show. Um, I was so wrong. I was in such a right way too, because we're talking about the movie, and then after the show was over, all of a sudden, I started seeing people talk about it. Still talking about it when they talk werewolf movies. People love that movie. They absolutely love it, and I could not be more happy to be more wrong than what I was. Um,
Right.
when I saw that you're writing your book, uh, 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 between Heaven and 42nd and Broadway, and I'm thinking to myself, going like, I wonder if he's written any other stories with the family. I wanted to know. So I want to ask you that.
Mm.
I want to ask you that question. I want to know if you have written any other adventures with our
I
Hunter
had it.
Moon.
No, I thought about doing a sequel, at least initially. And actually, I don't know if I shared this with you. Originally, it was supposed to be, at least in my mind, was going to be a trilogy. And I was going to do Hunter's Moon, and then I wanted to do a vampire movie in a similar fashion where it had, familiar. I ended up writing a vampire script that became Sin Origin, which was made in. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
Uh,
Sorry, little ones. Yeah, so I'd written a vampire script, completely different, but similar, where I would take the familiarity of the vampire lore, if you will, change it, spin it on its head a little bit. So that actually did get made. It's called Sin Origin. It's a Spanish movie made down in Mexico. But originally, when I'd written that, the idea was to take that, Hunter's Moon, have them be separate, and then have the two of them mesh the surviving members of each one in a zombie apocalypse movie where the werewolves and vampires had to team up with surviving humans to fight zombies and survive. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. Might
that
still
would
do
be
something like that.
that would be
Um,
such a cool story.
yeah, because I was thinking, you have your. I'm not going to ruin how Sin Origin ends because it's a great movie. The problem is it's not available in the States, and I have no idea why. Try and figure out how to get that, maybe get you a copy of that. But
Sometimes
it,
that happens. There was a movie I wanted to get with God, what was it called? It was a movie that Haley Bennett did, and so I went to look for it. And I was looking online. I was like, okay, I want to get this movie, so I ordered it. It's in English, it's Haley Bennett has English. It came in, it was from Germany, and I'm going like, and I wrote to the guy back and going like, okay, this is not right. You're sending me a copy of this movie in Germany, and you can definitely see this is not what you said. So can you send me back my money? I'll send you back your movie. He let me keep the movie, but he also said that it was not released in the States. And so I went and looked, and it's an American movie that was not released in in America.
that's weird. That's
Yeah.
very that I don't quite get. This one, I've tracked it. The director's a great. He's a friend now. I just don't get it. They've sold a couple territories and Latin community, Latin market, and that's it. So
Hmm.
it's a great film. But yeah, the concept was always. I just thought it was kind of interesting because you at the end of Hunter's Moon you have your survivors. At the end of Sin Origin you have your survivors. It wouldn't be Sin Origin obviously because I don't have the rights to that anymore. But if I were to do another vampire one, have those surviving members, and because they look like humans in both cases, uh, being held up somewhere with actual humans and having this extra power to fight back this zombie apocalypse, and maybe the bites don't affect them. There's a million different things. I just hadn't seen anything done like that, and I think that would be kind of fun for people
Oh, I
of
would too.
the genre community for sure.
I know it's a funny thing to think about when you see, because you wrote your novel here, which we'll talk about now. You wrote your novel, when I saw that, and when I saw that, got released, and going like, okay, I'm not surprised he wrote a novel. I mean, that was, that makes perfect sense. Then I started thinking like, okay, so obviously he loves to write. So did he just for the hell of it, for his own adventuresome? Did he go ahead and did he write some more Hunter Moon stories? I mean, will he release them on his website? With something like that. I mean, I know I'd be down for that.
That
You
would
know,
be a good idea. Novelization of the Hunter's Moon world would be really interesting. No, this was I had always bucket list. I had always wanted to write a novel. It's something that even since I was a young child, and I had written a screenplay. The novel is actually based on a screenplay that I wrote. Um, One time, I don't remember, it was a couple of years ago. I just was like, I'm going to write a screenplay that I don't think anyone is going to buy. I'm not doing it for commercialization. I'm not doing it to try and sell. I'm going to just do something that just to write through some demons and just to write something that I would want to see and something that just I could infuse my own whatever I was feeling at that point and just write for the hell of writing because I hadn't done that in so long. Once you get kind of in the business and you're writing, trying to figure out, well, this will sell or do this with this actor or I can get this cast or I can get this finance. So this script, I wrote it. And then when it was during the pandemic, I tried to write a novel a couple times, totally unrelated to the screenplay, just sitting down. And what I found was I'd gotten so used to the dynamic of writing a screenplay where I could sit down, write for 1 hour, 8 hours, 12 hours, one day, 4 days in a row, 7 days in a row, leave it, come back 6 weeks later, pick up right where I left off because of the way it's structured and tone and things like that. Novel, for whatever reason, I couldn't. Every time I stepped away from it, I had a hard time finding that same voice. And so it was always, I would start something, I would get, I don't know, 20, 30 pages in, life would get in the way, I would do a movie, whatever, and then I would sit back down and I would go, I just can't find where this was going. It wasn't a writer's block thing, it just didn't.
yeah, yeah.
I'd start writing again, it would feel like a totally different book. So I looked at this screenplay, and this screenplay, because I was writing it strictly for myself, the actual style was different than any other screenplay I had written. It was a lot more, it was heavily influenced by Paul Schrader and Taxi Driver, Martin Scorsese, the film, and the script itself. And Paul's writing style is very narrative. It almost has a book feel to it because he's from a totally different generation, total hero writer of mine in terms of what he's been able to do. Even as a director,
movies too.
yeah, his directing. I mean, he's just. I can't wait to see this new one, the Gardener. Looks fantastic. But looking at I have the Taxi Driver script, obviously. It's just a lot more narration. It seems more like a play, more like a book. And so when I wrote this script, it had a lot of that element. So whereas before it would be very in and out, very quick. This script, for whatever reason, had a lot more. Just would be more visual. Just put a lot more stuff in. So I was like, this is a book. And so I just took the screenplay, put it into Word, and then just started to flesh it out. And then, you look at a novel is 40,000 words or above, I think. Yeah, 40,000 words or above. I think when I put it in script directly into Word, it was about 22,000. I was like, whoa, that's a big, long ways away. So then I just kind of started working like that. It was almost like an extended outline. And I did it in third-person narration because it allowed me to jump around time-wise, follow different characters. My style tends to lend itself more to first person, but because of the way that the script was written, I was able to and I set it in the 70s in New York City, so it was a lot of fun doing a ton of research where I would have them go to a restaurant that was really popular in 1977, and I would look up what the popular dish was there, and so I would make the point to say that they were eating this, and then I would give a little blurb of what happened to that restaurant, or that restaurant's now CVS or whatever. So it allowed me to jump from space and time and all over the place for the different characters. I had a lot of fun doing that. There's a ton of, it's bordering on the line of historical fiction in terms of a lot of true events are put in there and twisted and changed around to fit the fiction, obviously. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And that's how that came about. It's something that I always wanted to do, and I'm really proud and excited. And it's getting released on May 30th.
Wow.
Hoping I submitted for a New York Times review, hoping that comes through, but I haven't heard anything yet. But that would be kind of a fun.
I think your chances are pretty high. Because of your pedigree. That's something I think that a critic would, with your background in movies and screenwriting and whatnot, I think definitely that'll raise some a lot of critics will sink their teeth into it. They want to see it. Yeah. that you know that I mean it does happen. I mean there's been some screenwriters that have written some novels and did you find the I know you mentioned about the the picking up part, the putting and coming back to it part, but once you got in that rhythm though, did you write it in mind as a screenplay? I mean, were you thinking about like even though you're writing it for novelization, but at the same time, were you thinking about like how would I break this down into a screenplay for a movie? Did you write it with anybody in mind in the casting? If you were going to cast it, were you writing it in that respect, or you
Yeah,
just
it's I wrote the screenplay first, so it's a completed screenplay. That's done.
mm,
That's in the can. I wrote the screenplay. Uh, he's aged out of the part pretty much now, but originally with Matt Dillon in mind. But it was a kind of a weird. It's almost like a younger Matt Dillon would be perfect for this part. And actually, that's the other thing. When I was writing, I had a. This is not a name drop thing, but I had a conversation with Matt because at one point he was going to be in Hangman, and I was saying that a lot of the movies that he had done over the course of his career probably wouldn't get made today. Drugstore Cowboy, a lot of the Coppola stuff, Rumblefish, all things like that.
isn't
And
that scary? Isn't that scary?
it's right. I mean, I don't know if The Godfather would get made today, which is scary, but um, I I said to him I really wanted to write something that was almost like stuck in time and something that would come across, his desk back in his heyday. And I didn't say heyday because he's still making movies. I just think he's still extremely talented, but meaning back when you were making these fantastic movies. And he said, yeah, you're right, or whatever. And I think that I kind of had the idea in my mind even prior to that. So I wrote it as if Matt was, in his late 20s, early 30s, and was going to play this part. But that was really the only jumping off point in terms of actors, because I didn't want to get stuck. Like I said earlier, I didn't want to get stuck in thinking this. I don't know if the movie ever would get made. It wasn't why I was writing it. It was more to put. I have a lot of my own personal stories and histories and stuff, and it's hidden in there under the 1977 character in New York. And I obviously wasn't even alive. I was born in 1978, so before the book even ends, I am not even born yet. So
I can tell you about this. I was around back then. Let's see. I think the summer of 70. I want to say 76. Maybe it was 75, 76. There you had the summer of Sam.
that's 76. Yeah, that's in the book. I
Yeah.
actually that crosses past. Now I've talked, Vietnam's in there. I do the mobs down at the waterfront. I mean, it crosses a lot of the 42nd Street and Broadway is the Deuce, so it has that taxi driver vibe to it and all that stuff, that kind of underbelly of what was going on there. So it was just a lot of fun to take a character. I mean, the main character basically he's a Vietnam vet, but he's living in the new reality where he's almost he's become passive. He's neutered in a way. He's got a young child. He's a struggling writer. He's trying to make it in the world, and every time he writes a new manuscript, he thinks it's going to be the next one. He's going to be the next one. And he's struggling to take care of his family, and he is presented with this opportunity to basically go into that underworld, underbelly, drugs, all sex, all that stuff. Studio 54 is in there as well, and because of the background of the military and just his own personal stuff. And just to be clear, I've never been in the military. My hats off and utmost respect for people who've been in the military. But again, I did a lot of research for that as well. And so my hope is that anyone that picks this book up who's been to Studio 54 can go, oh, God, yeah, I remember that part. Or who was in Vietnam. And, some of the Vietnam stuff is told through some nightmares and things like that. So there is somewhat of a fantasy element to it, a horror nightmare element aspect of it. But, I was even looking up baseball scores for the Mets. What was the beer of choice, the sponsor for the Mets at the time? That was back, especially Matt Dillon is a big Mets fan, so that was kind of a homage to him. But there's a score, and there's the guy's listening to the radio, and so I looked up who the broadcasters were and what the score was, and I put all that in there. So every little detail is kind of really fleshed out. I feel like along with the narrative of the actual story that's happening, anyone that lived then can kind of, maybe that's a slice of life that they can revisit, or people like myself who were never there. I really wanted to build up what that world was because I've never seen it. I mean, the Deuce now is completely gentrified and
Yeah.
it's Times Square, so that's completely different than 1976, 77.
I'm just thinking here. I'm going like, yeah, 76 Yankees. That was the first time they won the pennant. They beat Kansas City 7-6, bottom of the ninth. Howard Cosell called that game. Then they lost 4-0 against the Reds. And then 77, they had that was they won the World Series against the Dodgers. 78. That
How do
was
you
the
remember all this? That's crazy.
yeah. Well, I'm a Yankees fan, so I remember really vividly well. Um, yeah, I was just like 79. That's when Thurman Munson died. First time I ever cried over over an athlete. Yeah, I was heartbroken. But yeah, I remember the Yankees because that was my team, and so I remember everything about that. It was Bucky Dent's home run in '78 against Boston.
Yeah, I
Like it
grew up
was
in
absolutely
Massachusetts,
crazy.
but that was yeah. We call Bucky Dent, but he has a middle name in Massachusetts that we.
Yeah, yes, he still has that middle name too,
He's,
which
yeah,
is sort of funny to me. It's like it's like okay, I don't think you guys necessarily need to use that middle name anymore. You guys got your own. You got your own World Series. You don't need to go out there and harp on him anymore now. Um, I will say this. I'm not a Red Sox fan, but I will say this. I mean, I know you wrote your story in the '70s, but in the '80s when Bill Buckner let the ball go between his legs, I
yeah,
tell you, I tell you, as a baseball fan, I was heartbroken for him. I never laughed not one time. I didn't think that was funny at all. I saw a lot of my friends were cracking up about it and imitating it and whatnot. I never did. I thought it was sad.
it's tough
Um,
because they wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for him, and that's
no,
following around forever, and it's tough. I mean, baseball fans can be, they're sport fans in general. As I've gotten older and have kids now, I
I've gotten away from it too.
sports, but I've mellowed out a heck of a lot. I mean, I don't let sports dictate my emotions like I used to. If my team would lose, I would just be crushed for days. Now I'm just like, I don't have the time for that. And
Yeah, yeah, that's what it is. You just don't have the time for it anymore. I'm hoping. So, how did you get your publisher? Talk to us a little bit about your publisher. How to,
yeah,
did you submit it to a lot of houses, or did they know who you were and what you've already written and come knocking at the door first?
it's really weird. I think everything really happens for a reason. So my publisher is Briley Baxter Publications. They're out of Plymouth, Massachusetts, and Stacy is the owner of the company. And I had submitted to a couple of publishers. I had submitted to a couple of writing agents because a lot of the publishers I'd reached out to were like, "You need an agent," and I'm like, "Well, I have a manager for my career," and they're like, "No, you need a novel agent," and I'm like, "Oh, here we go again." And I've done this my entire career, trying to get agents and managers over the course of the years. You got to send these query letters out. They're now done via email, which is a hell of a lot easier. But I sat there thinking, with my career, with my children, I didn't really want to sit and submit a bunch of query letters to agents, take 8 weeks for them to read it, then sit and have them submit it to publishers. And we're looking at years at this point. I'm just like, I don't have the patience for that. And so I was in Massachusetts. I was visiting with my best friend. And I was like, you know what? So much of my life and who I am is from Massachusetts and my upbringing. And I've always carried that with me. And I tell my children about Massachusetts and certain things and how it's affected me as a person. And I was like, let me just look and see who the Massachusetts publishers are. And I was in New Bedford at the time, which is relatively close to Plymouth. And this one came up. And the other thing I really liked about it is they give 10% of the proceeds to rescue charities in terms of animal rescues, it was important to me. I thought that was, I've had animals my entire life. I have 2 cats now and a dog, and I just thought that was just such an added bonus. And so I reached out to Stacy and I sent her an email. Hold on, my daughter is trying to, what? Baby, what? What, sweetheart? I'll give you a popsicle when I'm off. Go sit down, sweetie. Sorry. We got popsicles, apparently.
Oh man, oh, I can.
That's so it's been a little warm today. So I reached out, and Stacy reached out personally, and she was like, "Yeah, this sounds interesting. Send it over." And she went through her process, and it just really worked out. And I had a couple of connections, full disclosure, to a couple of the bigger publishers, and like I said, I had submitted to them, and I felt like I needed for my first book in particular, and because it was so personal, I wanted that personal connection, if you will, and Stacy just has that. She's been awesome from the entire process of just working with writers, and I think that's one of the things. She herself is a award-winning writer, and so I think that she knows what it's like to be on the other side. And I thought, man, this is just checking a lot of boxes for me, and yeah, so it just worked out, and we communicated, we did our thing, and we actually partnered up on the book. So everything from the cover to the things inside. So I got an advance copy, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Hold on to that.
Yeah, this is this is very. When I got this, I was, like I said, it was like all of my life. I thought of all the people that have helped me in terms of writing or just in general, and that's all part of that book. And I just feel so grateful to have found a publisher that I feel really confident and safe. And it's almost like there's, I don't want to say family dynamic because we don't know each other that well, but I can tell that Stacy really cares. And the other books, I want to be supportive of the other writers on social media, and it's just that to me is important because I saw how hard it was for me to write this book, and so I think of these people that can crank these books out. I'm just like, wow. It's funny because I feel like a lot of novelists want to be screenwriters, and a lot of screenwriters want to be novelists, and now I can at least say that I've done both. Both have their difficulties, but yeah, really proud and excited.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. I was excited when I saw that. I'm like, that's so cool. I was just amazed. I'm going like, man, he sat down and cranked himself a novel. I mean, and I'm going like, that's not an easy feat. It takes a lot to write a novel. It's not it's not just grab a cup of tea and go inside and shut the door and see in 2 days. It takes like you said, to do the due diligence and do all the research and
Yeah,
and everything else. I mean, especially for a historical novel. I mean, if you write a contemporary one, it's pretty easy because everything's right at your fingertips.
yeah,
But you have to go back to, and not only that, you have to make it so that to make it really interesting. Because I don't know about readers. I don't know about readers. I know, like with people with movies, like they say, the average person, now watching a movie, their idea of an old movie is 15 years. Anything 15 years ago, it's old. Um, I hear classic radio are bands that you and I grew up on. When I
it's,
hear like
yeah,
no doubt it's
in the
considered
grocery
classic
the grocery
radio.
store. I'm hearing songs that we grew up in the grocery store. That's usually that weird elevator music, and I'm like, oh my
Right.
god, that's fun.
And, um, where do you think where are you going to find your audience at? How are you going to market it? Did you have any input on how you're going to market this book? And did you
Um,
think about these things when you were writing it? I mean, because like I mentioned about, did you write it with people in mind? Like you wrote the screenplay, so you're already thinking screenplay. You're thinking marketing already. You're thinking of
Selling
filming.
it.
You're thinking of marketing.
Yeah, exactly. Especially because I've done the producing side of things now. For this, no, honestly, I'm almost letting go. I mean, Stacy and the publishers have there's a plan and it's laid out, and there's things that you'll see, and like the book reveal was on social media, and I think you saw that. So there's like little steps, and then there's submissions to different. The problem is not the problem, but bookstores have gone the way of Blockbuster in a lot of ways, where it's there's one Barnes and Noble near me, and I'm like clinging on to it for dear life because it's like I like to just go into bookstores and browse and grab a few novels, and usually they're classics, but it's like there's something about touching the pages and
Yeah.
the smell of the books. And I worked at a library when I was 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range for a couple of years, and just the smell of the book. So I wrote it for me first and foremost, and then I wrote it for all the people that have supported me, my grandmother in particular, and my favorite teacher, Mr. McCurtain, Mr. Mack. Those are the two that I thought of throughout this process. And then also I thought about those library bookshelves. I would love for my book to be in the library that I worked at one point. Not out of ego, but just I remember just getting lost. I read a lot of real crime too, which is not surprising where my career has gone. But writing, I'd be putting the books away as part of my job, and then just looking at like, I can't tell you how lost the hours would go by, and I go, oh crap, I'm going to continue my job. But there's, I don't know, in terms of who the market is. I just think it's for people that want a story and want something. I do believe in my ability to tell a story from start to finish. That's always been there. I think halfway through the history angle, I was like, did I get myself in trouble here because of all the research? But I kind of geek out on that, to be honest with you. I like going down these weird rabbit holes where, all of a sudden I'm 4 hours in looking up significant others of mobsters over the years, because that's an important piece in the book at one point, without giving anything away, and seeing how they came about. And then also, I kind of combined I did take some liberties where if certain things didn't line up, but I think that it's also not a huge book. I mean, 60,000 words, so it's far from, War and Peace. It's an easy read. Someone should be able to sit down, much like a screenplay, and get through it in a couple hours. And my hope is someone can pick it up and they don't want to put it down. That would be fantastic. That would be a great accomplishment. But I think it'll find its audience. I believe in that. And I think, but at the end of the day, I wrote it for the sake of being creative. And if nobody reads it, I don't think that's the case, but I still will feel like it's meant to be.
No, I think you have enough of a name out there that people will definitely talk about it. I would not be surprised to see my sister pick up a copy of this.
There you go. Pre-order it now, so I'll have to.
She's a prolific reader. Yeah, I read too. I'm pretty prolific as well. Not like her though. I mean, yeah, I was in my heyday. Man, I'd light it up.
That's
I
not
light it.
Yeah, I don't have that time again. It's sad.
Yeah. It's sort of funny to say in this format, but it's like the only time I really actually read, I force myself, because I have bad feet, so I have to soak my feet. So I go in there and I'll soak my feet for an hour, and that's where I do my reading at. I'll read while I'm soaking my feet.
Well, an hour a day is a lot more than a lot of people read, so I think that's I've been trying to really make time in the morning, every morning, to read something, just to get back into that routine. But yeah, I'm just, as always, I appreciate your support when you reached out to have me do the interview. I was like, absolutely. I tell everybody that will listen about your thing. And also, we've collaborated in terms of like getting other actors and actresses on here, and I think
I really enjoyed that. We're gonna do that some more. Let me tell you, I will definitely. You have anybody you want to send my way? It's gonna happen. I can't wait to have Audrey back on.
Yeah, she's gonna be maybe the best place would be No Tears comes out, and then have her on. That would be great, because she was a real trooper, and I think I was really.
Well, Tatiana did No Tears in Hell, so it was Tatiana and Audrey and one other one, right? Was there another one that I'm missing?
In terms of actresses or actors?
I thought it was Tatiana and Audrey.
Gabby is the other.
Gabby. Yes, Gabby's going to come and hang out with us in May. In fact,
Gabby is also hoping to work with her sometime in the near future on another project, actually too. So.
Yeah, we had a date. She was actually scheduled for the 19th, but she had a death in the family, and then she's gonna, she had to fly across the pond, and then she's coming back, and then she said, I'm getting back this time, and I'm going like, yeah, that's jet lag, so I'm not gonna do that to you. Then she had I think she has a shoot, and so I said, I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and do something in May. So I'm gonna go ahead and give her some dates to have her come on in and have her on. But yeah, you. Now, I just want to ask. I'm going to ask you this too. It's like you have a really uncanny way of casting. You do get involved heavily in casting of your projects, don't you? You're not one to turn around and sit there and say, "Okay, casting director, you take care of it." I have a feeling that you are a lot more involved in the casting than people realize.
It depends. I feel like I really lucked out in a lot of ways with. So, I mean, I met Tatiana through Purgatory. I didn't cast her. My producing partner, Clayton Turnage, I believe was involved with that casting. But, I think my thing, I do like to look at, it's tough. I've always been, I'm thinking one of the things I tell actors all the time, I really feel like auditions is really hard for people because for filmmakers, because I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be. It's a weird thing for a director to say, but you have this scene, and sometimes the scene. What I do try and do, I'll say this is I try and work with the casting director to get a scene that I think at least gives the actor or actress something to play with. Because even I've done acting in the past myself, and I've had auditions, and it's like I don't know how someone is supposed to do anything with the pages that are given to them. I mean, it's very like there's nothing there. There's no meat, and I think what I do really well, not well, but what I like to do is once I find an actor or an actress that I like working with, I try to cling on to them for dear life because, like I said, it's once you find these diamonds. But No Tears was cast by Debbie Sheridan. Actually, she hit it out of the park with the people. I mean, she was sending me auditions and stuff like that. But my thing when I watch No Tears, the rough cut, is there's not a bad performance. Even even the smaller parts, everybody just. I'm just so impressed. So I give a lot of credit to casting directors because I do feel like it's a challenging job. But yeah, No Tears. I was hands on, but Debbie, especially because we shot part of it in part of it in Alaska, part of it in Alabama, and so once we were in the Alabama area, pulling people from Atlanta and various places, I didn't know anybody there, so that was all her and the casting network and stuff like that. So, but I do know Tatiana actually introduced me to Audrey, so there was already that connection.
Okay.
But Gabby was totally from Debbie, and I remember calling Gabby and discussing the part with her because the movie is it's very intense. There is some nudity and things like that in the movie, and I think we laugh about it now, but I was more nervous about the phone call than she was, and I think after I figured out that she was just like, I'm in, like the writing's great, let's just do it. I was just like, oh, all right. And then I think for me, it's always about creating this safe space
Right.
before, especially during. I'm very adamant about that. If there's going to be, whether it's violence or nudity or things like that, because in order to get these performances, you need people to go to these really crazy places. If it's nudity or violence, Luke, who is the lead of No Tears, is playing this serial killer, and he is prolific and violent and all that stuff. And then the actor Luke is like this big sweetheart, and it's like he's turning it on and off. And I'm going like, I don't know how you are doing what you're doing, but
Yeah, there was an actor named Kevin Gage, and oh my gosh, I saw this movie that he did called Chaos,
mm,
and I got sent that movie, to review,
yeah,
and that movie, and I put it on there, and I'm watching it, and I'm going like, what the, I was furious,
wow,
furious. That movie was just, it was offensive,
really,
and yes, it's very graphic and very. It was just one of the worst movies I've ever watched in terms of violence. And then the director, the guy who wrote it, he does special features, and he's talking about how badass he is and how badass this movie is, and he's doing things that no one's ever done, and he was, it's like he didn't look at, he was so happy with what he, for the sheer violence of it, and it was really bad. And I contacted the lady. It was a lady who sent it to me too.
mm,
She worked at Brain Damage Films, and I called her up. I said, "Listen, did you watch this movie? Have you watched this movie? Which one? Chaos. Have you watched it? No, no. I strongly suggest that you do watch your movies before you send them out to people.
yeah,
Highly recommend that. Don't send stuff out like this to unless you watched it yourself." And I said, this movie is like on the same level as I Spit on Your Grave, violent, if not more. And
really,
so, yes. Oh yeah, it's not. It's a very violent movie.
You might want to sit out No Tears. I'll be honest with
Oh,
you.
I watched Martyrs. And the Centipede. I covered the Centipede and
Yeah,
Martyrs.
No Tears has what I tried to do, because it's based on a true story, which is the other thing. So some of the scenes, obviously, I took some liberties, but I just tried to tell a story that kind of, I didn't want to glorify a serial killer, but I also didn't want to make them this this unreliable. I tried to show.
Sure. Trust
Uh,
me. We know. I know you're no Tarantino. You're not going to be out there exploiting it for the sake of
No,
exploiting it.
but there are moments where I pushed, and there were emotions, and people were crying on set, and I was crying, and I think but that's what I was trying to do, is the humanity angle of it. So there is violence, but there's always that thing of like, are serial killers born that way? Are they created? Are they a product of their environment? And so for this, I didn't interview the serial killer, obviously, or his mother, but I chose to show that, we are somewhat more of a product of our environment. And so without making him sympathetic, which is not what I was trying to do, I just wanted to show the human side of things versus.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny you mentioned that because I just talked about this too. I was just talking about this. Um, did you see little? Did you ever see Little Children?
I did. Hold on one second. Guys, stop. I'm not going to tell you again. You're both going to go in timeout when I get out. Sorry, yes. Little Children.
Okay.
The
Todd Fields directed it.
That's not the Kevin Bacon one, is it? No, that's.
Yeah. Little Children was with Patrick Wilson, Kate Winslet, Jennifer Connelly, and Jackie Earle Haley.
Oh no, I didn't see this one. No.
Well, it's funny because Jackie Earle Haley actually got an Oscar nomination for the movie.
I remember that.
He played a pedophile. It was the closest thing. I mean, when you watch this role, you watch him and see his life. Obviously, what he did is really wrong and everything else, but he gave that character a real soul.
Yeah.
It was not the usual, instantly, he's a child molester, so you're gonna hate him full on. You watch him and you're at the same time you're repelled by him. At the same time, you feel horribly sorry for him.
Wow.
It was such a powerful performance. So, you can get. I think actors and directors and writers can go there and get those kind of performances if you have the right motives in mind, if you have the right intent. Someone like a Tarantino, Tarantino's like a 5-year-old kid finger painting, compared to a lot of compared to a lot of movies when it comes down to writing and story presentation and whatnot. I mean, yes, he's loud and flashy, but so is a 5-year-old with a can of paint in a finger. You know, it's
Yeah.
because just because he's two fingers to smear orange and brown doesn't make him an artist. It makes him messy. And so he has no idea. There's no subtlety in his storytelling. None. There's no subtleness. And whereas I think a story like No Tears in Hell or Martyrs, I don't know if you've seen that movie or not.
No.
That movie will have you thinking. That movie is, and same thing with the Centipede. When you watch the Centipede, I mean, once you get past the idea of what he's doing, you start thinking about it a little bit more. It's subtle and it's insidious and it's brilliant. it's,
Yeah, you like
it's
that one a lot more than I do. You should check out the Snowtown Murders. It's an Australian film.
Yeah, I have that. I have that movie in my ISC collection.
So that heavily influenced No Tears in terms of the story,
Ah,
the pacing, and it's so intense. I remember like having to look away for a couple of scenes, but also it's so beautifully shot, and the performances are just unbelievable. And then you look at the IMDb page, and it's like the two leads have headshots, but then pretty much everybody else has no headshots. So it's like local hires or people that have done nothing else, or aren't actors that are continually working. It's the way I interpret that, anyways.
Is
And I'm like,
is that important that actors? Because I see that too when I write you a review or look up their body of work. Is it important to me, as a director and as a and a producer? Is it important that actors, when they do an IMDb, especially since it's free, it's free to put your
well,
first picture up there, to do
not free,
so?
it's not free to put the picture up there. That's the issue. So in order
Oh,
to get the picture up there, you have to pay for pro, or you have to have a representation, an agent or a manager who will do it for you. So that said, I think it's the advice I would say is if you are a working actor and this is your dream and you figure out a way to come up with the pro, I mean, that's the only way to do it. It does, if you have a reel and you have an agent that's sending stuff out, they're probably going to tell you the same thing anyways. But if you're struggling and you can't pay your bills, it's one of those things of like, it's hard for me to say to someone that's struggling just to pay their rent to go pay whatever 100, I don't know what it is, but I will say when I look at the credits in terms of that stuff, it's usually a local hire or someone that's a day player or a background actor or whatever that doesn't have a picture on there. So I think that's the way to look at it. But again, if you look at the Snowtown Martyrs, if I were to look at that, I would go, well, this is a small movie. It's not a small movie. The budget wasn't massive, but I think it was a first-time writer and a first-time director. They teamed up, and I think it's genius. And they went on. The director went on to do. He went from that to a big studio movie, Assassin's Creed. He did Assassin's Creed, and I think that was a big jump. And I'm not really sure.
yeah, that I think that one. Yeah, you know what's funny? You mentioned that too. Yeah, Assassin's Creed. I think that one crashed and burned.
I don't think that was really. I mean, I wonder if in hindsight, if you would have picked something different, because it's a very different film. I mean, I don't know, if you make that jump, but then again, I look at Saw franchise and James Wan and what he's been able to do since then, and so I think sometimes it's hard to judge what's the next person should jump into. But
Isn't that the truth?
what's that?
That is the truth, right? Because you look at certain directors that they come in there like their first movie they come in and they're just white hot. I'm interviewing a gentleman next week, which I'm going to send you a reminder to. I
Right.
really want you to come watch it, or at least remind you to watch it. His
Yeah.
name is I can't pronounce his last name. It's I think it's Arabic, but it's so long. I don't want to crush it.
No,
But I know his first name is Kevin, and he's a French director. And Michael, he's freaking brilliant. He's
really.
brilliant. He's brilliant. One of the trilogy for me, like first time directors, finding them was Liam Gavin from Dark Song, and Aisling Clark from A Devil's Doorway. She's just getting her second film.
Right.
And then Kevin's done three. He's done a series of 4 short films. 3 of them I reviewed. My gosh, they're amazing.
Really.
Amazing. But you know what? That's a really interesting thing you mentioned. Is do you think? I mean, when you go out there and you do your first film as a director, what are some of the lessons coming out of your first film that you did? What are some of the what would you tell somebody that some of the lessons that you learned in doing your first film versus going to do your second film?
I think the biggest takeaway is surrounding yourself with the right people, and mainly surrounding yourself with people that know more than you do. So for me, I figured out pretty quickly that for me, in terms of, I don't want to take away from other positions, so let me phrase it this way. For me personally, the director of photography and the editor are probably the 2 most important positions for me in terms of what'll make or break something that I'm working on. So finding that right director of photography, or finding whoever you feel comfortable with, is a key. But also whoever is working with you, other producers, the writer, the right script. There's a real honest statement is that if you make a movie that is bad or just really, even if it's not your fault, it's going to be really hard to get a second movie, and that's just a fact. And it's one of those things where Hunter's Moon, I look at it very fondly, and I know I can see all of the struggles and what I learned along the way and all those things. But it did well enough that at least I've been given other chances since then. But it could have gone.
People love it. They
It could have gone.
do.
Well,
Yeah, type in reviews and YouTube in here, and you'll see a lot of people talk about it, and they talk about it very fondly. It's a fun movie. It's a real fun movie. I mean, everybody loves it. Everybody loves the concept.
Well, overseas, I think we've gotten a lot of because I can see like Amazon rankings and stuff in various different countries, and it's been top 10 in a lot of weird places for a long time. And I'm like, it's just bizarre to me, like how certain things rate really well and things do certain things. And it also came out at a really weird time. I mean, the pandemic had just hit. And I thought, well, this will be great because everybody's going to be home anyways. The problem with that is marketing was very limited. There was supposed to be a live screening. The cast was supposed to be there. It was Three Bloody Disgusting. That all got canceled because of COVID. And so all of a sudden it was like almost like this, build up, and then just, hey, the film's out. And so not a lot of people knew about it. And, part of the things, I'll say this for film as a filmmaker, and I think you and I have talked about this too, there's going to be things that are out of your control. And that's a lot of what happened with Hunter's Moon as well. It's like, the marketing was very Thomas Jane and very werewolf centric. And it's not that's not the movie, and I had said that talking to the distributor with the utmost respect, of course. If you market it this way, there's going to be people that are going to be disappointed because it's not American Werewolf in Paris. It's not American in London. It's not, there's even the people on set were like, you're only going to show the werewolf for a limited thing. But I'm like, it was written that way. It's not a budget thing. It was highly influenced by Jaws, which was a mechanical issue, but works so brilliantly where you just get glimpses of things and then you have this great reveal. And I didn't want it to be a werewolf thing. I didn't want a transformation scene. I didn't want bones all cracking because that wasn't what it was about. It was basically a family. I mean, it was about a family and also, I like blurring the lines of who's good and who's bad and not making judgments, and you can walk that fine line, and that's what I tried to do. And yeah, again, there's things if I would go back and look and say, God, I wish we had one more day here, or I wish we had 2 more hours here, or there's a scene where, without saying the scene, we were filming and the sun was coming up, and it was supposed to be a dark scene, and it was like, and my producing partner Clay was like, we got to move, and I'm like, I got to get this shot, otherwise I have to do it. So luckily, post production offers a lot of things that other filmmakers back in the day probably weren't able to do, but I know that scene has a different color tinge to it, and it's just because it was impossible to make it completely night because it was the sun was coming up. So there's things like that. I think what I tell first time directors is just be sure this is the project you want to do. If you're going to sink everything into it, and you got to think of the commercial side of it. You just have to, in my opinion. I mean, there's geniuses that are going to ignore that, but they're geniuses. So there you go. Same with screen.
I think a second film has got to be, especially when you come out and you do super well with the first one, and like I said, I mean, despite how wrong I was, but at the same time, I will give myself an out by sitting there saying, when I watched it, I knew already all that what we just talked about. I knew all that already. I just knew that there was more, because, you watch enough of these big budget movies and you can see hands involved in it. You just know it's just hands involved. A director no longer is 100%, has his own way. And I'm thinking about a director right now who I was thinking about, who went from a really successful small little film, independent film called the Vigil, and then he turned right around and they gave him Firestarter for a second film. This is okay. Here you go. They gave him the keys to Firestarter, Keith Thomas, and oh my gosh, I just wonder, does he ever lay awake and regret that move? Does he regret that? He because it got roasted. That movie just nobody. I mean, I can honestly say that.
Didn't even know it came out. Wow. Okay, that's.
I like that. I like the cast. I was like, I like the cast, but but I just felt like when I was reading the story and everything else, I'm going like, there's just no way he would put any of these into the story. He wouldn't have the confidence to do it. No director doing a second movie and a first for a major studio is going to have that much confidence to walk up there and say, "Yeah, I'm going to dramatically change the whole tone of the story." No,
So
nobody would.
you're thinking somebody else did it. I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, I think that happens. It could have been the Assassin's Creed thing, like we talked about. The guys that did Starry Eyes, they went and did the remake of Pet Sematary. But that was right after Starry Eyes, which was a smaller movie. And so part of me, as a struggling independent writer-director, is like, that sounds great. But I know what comes with that is also, there's another side of that too, right? I mean, I think I've shared the story with you, but I had heard Jon Favreau speak. I think it was at a writer's event or a producer's event years ago, and he was saying, if you're a writer in the audience and you're struggling and enjoy the process, everyone tells you that. He's like, I wrote Swingers, and then I've never had more stress in my life having to follow up Swingers with the next movie, which was made. The name of the movie was made. So I think that there's just so many things that are out of your control. I think that's the scary thing. It's not like, if you go to medical school and you learn how to do a surgery and you do it this way, there's just, like you said, there's other hands that come in. And in my case, it was a marketing thing. I mean, I'm not trying to blame the marketing, but I feel like that didn't help me. There was also a technical glitch, which I should probably say. When it was released, the blacks, there was something wrong with the blacks. So that initially when it was streaming, it was so dark that people couldn't see my film. So there's a few early releases that people are like, it's so dark, I don't know what's going on. And I'm going, what? And I remember buying it on Amazon going, this is not my film. This is not what we agreed on. What is happening? And I had to call the distributor, and they're like, call the distributor, call the post house like, it's not us. Distributor's like, yeah, it's something, there's a mistake we made. And I'm like, really? So who knows? People went and watched it and couldn't see. It was so dark. I mean, it's a movie that takes place mostly at night anyways, but I didn't so that people couldn't see it. And I don't know, maybe you saw that too. I don't know which version you saw. So that's the other thing.
I think I got an early copy. I remember how dark it was in the first part of the movie.
And that is, if you were to stream it, it's on Tubi. So if you watch it on Tubi for free, and then look at the streamer that you got, if you still had it, I don't know if you had it, but I guarantee you that one that you were given is not the one that should have been. So there's a thing called QC, which basically before you release a movie, it's quality control. So the distributor, in this case was Grindstone and Lionsgate, they'll put your film under the microscope and they'll find every little thing, and they'll say, like, I can see a reflection of a sneaker in this car hub tire, something that like a million people could watch and no one would see, but you find all these little things. So I remember having to pay and fix all these little things, and then it was black. Not black, but I bet the version you got, and other reviewers were probably given the same thing, and it's frustrating. I'm like, and I can't, I know mistakes happen, but this is my livelihood. This is my 4 years of my life, 3 years of my life, whatever it was. And so the best advice I could give to filmmakers that I learned in the first go around was be sure of the material that you want to do. Make sure you surround yourself with the right people. Make sure you surround yourself with people that know more than you. Listen to those people, but ultimately have the confidence to make the final decision and the final calls. Confidence is a big thing. You have to be the most knowledgeable person about the material when you're on set. I think that's something that, from a writing perspective, the director should know this material even better than the writer by the time you start shooting, unless it's the same person, obviously. But
I mean, at least know enough, same as a writer, but yet not necessarily enough to overturn a writer, because you want to work with that writer, because it is the words, and
they'll change it. The directors will change it. That happens. It's one of the reasons I got into directing, is because actors want to change stuff, directors want to change stuff, and writing is it's a solo effort until it gets out of your hands, and then everybody's changing this and that. And I mean, like Hangman, we had notes from everybody. It was coming from every direction. Like, I had to finally say to Johnny, the director, at one point, Johnny, these notes are contradicting. Whose notes am I going with? And his answer was Al's. I said, okay.
Is that the case? It's like, I got 30 notes here. What do I go with? Al's.
Because everybody has a say in things, and I get that. But it got confusing. I was like, I can't. These notes contradict each other. I can't. You have to pick a lane, Johnny. So which one do you want? And he's like, Alice. I'm like, all right, that's probably.
It's funny. It's funny because after our first conversation, and we're talking about how Al's work and Al's process work and everything else, and I kept that with me. And a while ago, I rewatched a movie I saw at the theater, and I watched it like 10 times, and that was Insomnia. And so
Yeah.
I watched Insomnia, and I'm watching it, and then there's a scene in here in that movie that I never caught before, and I watched that movie 10 times,
Mm.
and it was so subtle and it was so gentle, and it was a scene where it's in the morgue, and they got the first girl there, and it's Crystal Lowe, the actress, and it was her first role, and
Mm.
she's laying out nude on the table, and they're talking about her autopsy and whatnot, how she, who killed her or whatnot. And there's a scene where Al just walks by and he very gently puts his finger out there and he brushes her hair. And it was just such a tender moment. And I remember asking Crystal about that. I'm going like, was that planned, or was that planned? And she says no. And then I want like I'm just thinking, wow, how cool that would have been. I
Yeah.
mean, this is such, mm. Um, what do you got coming up? I'll let this be our last question. I know your kids want their popsicles.
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you got on the table? You got anything new on the writing tip? Any new scripts coming up there?
Yeah. I wrote a script summer of last year. I co-wrote it with Felipe Martinez. It's called The Island. They filmed it. Director Sean filmed it in can't think of the name of the island where they actually filmed it, but it's a Michael Jai White, and Rothburn, the guy
Michael J. White. Oh,
White,
really?
and what's the guy
Nice.
from the other guy's name? It's an action movie. It was a lot of fun to write. It was Philippe's idea, and we collaborated on that. So that's in post. I don't have an update of when it is. There's a poster that came out, which is cool. I haven't seen the trailer yet, so I'm gonna actually reach out to the director Sean and see how that is.
And Michael J. White is that's one of my favorite actors.
Yeah, I haven't met him, but when they said literally some behind the scenes, like the script was written, it was one of those things where I met up with Philippe through my manager Jeff, and we did it over Zoom because he was on the island and I was actually still in Massachusetts at that point. So we collaborated and we cranked that out, and it was just like the flow was just boom, 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 boom. That was a lot of fun. So I'm waiting to see that. And Blood Red Films.
You'll be able to. They're gonna probably premiere that in LA, so you'll be able to see meet Michael J.
That would be an LA one, right? Yeah. The other script that I written a while ago called Mercy Good, which is a horror movie set in Salem, Massachusetts. That was Blood Red Films, George Lee, his company. I'm going to start shooting that in the summer with Kevin Lewis as the director. He did that Nick Cage movie, I think it's called Wonderland, something Wonderland.
Oh, Willy's Wonderland.
Willy Wonderland, yeah. So Kevin Lewis is the director of that. So that's filming in the summer, and that's one of my favorite scripts. It was, again, I tried to take a familiar, I grew up in Massachusetts, so it's the Salem witch trial kind of thing set in modern times with a haunted house, and kind of had some fun with that. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, I always have a little thing going on here. No Tears, obviously. I'm waiting on to finish that. I'm excited for. But then I'm in the talks now to maybe work on another TV show. It's early talks, but that is something that maybe the next time we talk, or I give you an update. But that would be a local. It'll be something here in LA, a TV show to write and direct some stuff.
That would be fun. Be nice to get a TV show, something, a series, and 10, 15, 20 episodes, and get in there, sink your teeth in it. I mean, hopefully there won't be a strike. Hopefully they can get what they want without doing that.
If they do it, then we'll see how it goes. But yeah.
Well,
Sounds
we'll update to everybody on the on your book. I think I put the publisher down on here.
okay.
I think I did. If not, I will fix that.
Yeah, it's Briley Baxter, and then I know you can
Yeah,
pre-order it on Amazon and all the places that you can buy books, so you can pre-order it. I'm
right.
looking, it's like I said, it's a quick read. It's I think they're and anyone that wants I don't want to say fun book because there is some intensity to it. It's fun, but there's it's not my kids are not going to read it. So let's just say that. I mean, they're also
Okay.
16, but my 16-year-old might read it. But yeah.
Well, thank you for coming out and hanging out with us again once more. It's been an honor as always. You're
Yep.
definitely one of the. I'm proud to call you a friend, and thank you for you know, talking with me. You and I had some late night talks. We'll have more, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, we both have overcome some mountains, and we're still here. So and that's a great thing. And we'll just look forward to your next time through. Hopefully, by the time you do come through, you'll have written a new short story or new least novella for Hunter's Moon. I'd love to see what the family's up to.
Yeah.
There is a demand for it. There is a demand for it. I have a feeling if you wrote a short story, a novel or something like that to keep it up and running, I'm sure the fans would definitely be all over it and going like, hell yeah, let's see what you got. Um,
Great
so
idea.
hopefully something that will come through. Of course, the island will come out, and when No Tears and No Tears in Hell come out, we will definitely talk to you and hopefully get a whole panel of the whole cast. We'll get
That would
you and
you know
Audrey.
you know most of the cast at this point, which is the good part.
Yeah,
So
yes, I have to talk to your killer still. I still
you
got to
do.
talk to him.
Luke
Yeah.
is he is I love him dearly. I know he's doing a lot of traveling last year, well, recently, but yeah, he's I can't. I hope to work with him again soon. He's just like I said, Debbie really hit it out of the park with the casting, and I benefited. I mean, because if I didn't have the right cast for that movie, it's not happening right. So
Yeah. Well, I can tell you right now, your actresses were on point. That's for sure. They're very talented and very, very nice people, very kind people, and terrific talents.
thank you so
Um, all right, boys and girls, we are out of here tomorrow night. We get to interview a action legend, action icon. Um, we are interviewing Marshall R.T. tomorrow. Um, I have to keep using this. I'm going to use this one instead. Did you ever watch Walker, Texas Ranger?
I've seen it. Yes.
So Marshall Teague, he's a good friend of Chuck Norris. He appeared on Walker, Texas Rangers 8 times. I think he played 7 different characters on eight different times he appeared on the show.
Wow.
I think he was the first villain that Walker faced, and he was the last one he faced. And so we're going to be talking to him tomorrow.
Very cool.
Some of you might remember him too, even though we're not going to really talk about that much. But he appeared in a legendary action film called Roadhouse. He played Jimmy, Ben Gazzara's right hand man, and he'll be here he'll be here talking about his career. He also has done several great movies. He helps out a lot of young filmmakers. He does short films for them. He does a lot of independent films. He truly is one of the most generous, most giving actors I've seen in a very, very long time. And we are talking to him tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And I can't wait to hear some of his stories, hanging out with Chuck and Richard Norton and whatnot. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that will be tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And we will be joined by our good friend Hobbs Hoare. So hopefully we'll see you here tomorrow night for that. All right, Michael. I normally would have you stay and talk a little bit more, but I am going to let you go so that way you can
Yeah.
take care of your daughters, and then I'll just see you online.
You will. We'll talk soon. That's always a
All right.
pleasure. Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much. We'll talk soon.
Take care, my friend.
All right. Night.